I think a Pluribus Wiggum has some really interesting things to say about politics and what might make a good candidate. So, in that sense, it's actually a pretty good episode of The Simpsons. But in terms of being entertaining, I just wasn't that entertained. I think the last 3 minutes were actually really good. But other than that, it was just yeah, as a piece of entertainment, I didn't love it. But actually, as something that has quite some interesting points to make about politics. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. This is the 10th episode of the 19th season of The Simpsons, directed by Mike Frank Polcino and Mark Kirkland. And Springfield is the first place for the presidential primary, which for me, I kind of thought, okay, American politics. I'm not really that knowledgeable about American politics, but my very basic knowledge was enough to understand what was going on in this episode, so that was a good thing. And the candidates who obviously flock to Springfield to try and get their votes just aren't really doing anything for the people of Springfield, so they decide to put forward a candidate, and their own candidate is Ralph Wiggum, which is ludicrous. And initially I thought, is the episode trying to say that politics today is just so ridiculous? Let's put this 8-year-old boy, and particularly 8-year-old Ralph Wiggum, as a potential candidate. But actually, Ralph provided a different way of looking at things. I don't want to say too much about that because I don't want to spoil it. But he had a different, obviously has a different perspective, and it allowed me to look at things in a different way. And I thought that that was actually really clever, and it's actually very well written, very thought provoking, and very very moving actually. Obviously I'm not American, I can't vote in American politics. In the UK our politics are in some ways quite different, but in some ways very similar. And there are certain messages in this or certain ideas that I was able to latch onto and resonate with or have some kind of deeper thoughts about. But as I said, as an actual piece of entertainment, I wasn't entertained. So it depends on what I'm looking for, but after many hundreds of entertaining episodes of The Simpsons, I don't mind an episode where it was more about what it made me think rather than how it made me feel. And I'm okay with that. So for me personally, it's not the best episode, but I do actually think it's very well written and definitely something that's worth watching. It's quite heavy going, I think. There are a lot of things in it that made me think, well, that made me think in general, and um, I feel like obviously the more I watch it, the less I'll kind of be fully engaged to the messages that are being delivered, and it might be a bit more relaxing to watch. But certainly with this first time I've seen it, there was a lot going on, and it definitely was very engaging for those reasons. But it's not what I look for in an episode of The Simpsons. So it's good, I can't fault it. Well, the pacing wasn't great. It was quite slow for maybe the first half of the episode, actually. But other than that, I can't really fault it as an episode, but it's not my own personal preference. Not a bad episode in itself, but if, like me, you prefer something that's light and fluffy and not really something you're going to take too seriously, even though it's, expertly crafted and very well written and very well animated, in terms of the enjoyment, I prefer the episodes that are very light. So, for me, not my favourite, but if somebody were to love it or get a lot out of it, I can completely understand why.